Thank you for turning to 10, your news leader. 10 News Conference with Gene Valicenti continues right now.
And again, I'm Brian Crandall in for Gene. Joining me now, Providence City Council President Rachel Miller. President, thanks for joining us. I do want to start with the big news nationally of the week, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, a conservative. I'm guessing you disagree with him on just about everything. You're at the opposite end of the political spectrum. On a broader approach, what do you make of the political atmosphere these days as an outspoken progressive leader?
First off, my sympathies and heart go out to Charlie Kirk and his family unreservedly. I think there is no role for political assassination in a democracy. And truly, like, every life lost to violence is a tragedy. I can say that while knowing that I disagreed with almost everything he ever said. We are at a moment when we need to disagree. And I think to make our democracy stronger, I think Providence gets this right. I think Rhode Island gets this right. We have 15 counselors. We don't always agree. The mayor and the council don't always agree. We are committed to being in conversation together because we were elected to work together to figure out the path for our city. So the national landscape is challenging. It can be scary. In Providence, I believe we are setting the right tone and working together.
Is there ever a concern, or do you ever talk to other Democratic leaders? I know in Minnesota, right, lawmakers were targeted there. I mean, just, is it a tough environment to be a politician in general?
I think that's always the case. I think being a public figure puts, you put yourself literally out there. I know for myself and for the council, we never want to get security in the face of accessibility, right? It's always going to be being able to be accessible to our neighbors and residents, and of course be conscious. We've had a few moments this term where people have been conscious of someone who was maybe behaving in ways that they could not. We had a good partnership with the Providence Police on that, but the whole balance is always going to be about accessibility and being together with our neighbors.
I do want to pick up on the police since you mentioned them. You were critical of the Providence Police Department earlier this summer over their handling of an incident where immigration agents responded. They got in a car crash chasing someone, and they called the Providence Police. Officers showed up, and the body camera video, I think at one point, showed an officer saying, "How can we help?" And you were critical of that. You didn't think Providence Police should basically be helping ICE at all. Explain and defend that position.
Sure. So we, at our core, right? And I think the City Council is like honed in on protecting our residents so that we can all thrive. If people are afraid to go to the police to report a crime, we are not safer. If people are afraid in their home to leave their homes, participate in the economy, take their kids to school, that's not good for our city as a whole. There's a standing law that says that the Providence Police will not participate in immigration enforcement. So that has nothing to do with interfering with their ability to stand against crime, act against crime. It is entirely around participating in immigration enforcement. And right now, it is questionable what ICE is doing in our city. In cities across the country, there are huge lines of crossing constitutional boundaries. And we are, like I said, safer and have a position to thrive when police are not participating in that.
But if there's a situation where federal agents, whether you disagree with what they're doing or not, are in a position where they need help from local police, should the local police not help them out, whether that's either with traffic control or crowd control, and you're saying definitely helping them put handcuffs on somebody is across the line, but isn't that a tough line if you're a police officer on scene, especially when there's fellow law enforcement officers who may need help?
If there is a criminal action and there's a judicial warrant, there's nothing inhibiting Providence Police from participating. In fact, it is encouraged. In the case where it's murkier, the law is really clear. And I think we've had some positive conversations with civil rights attorneys in the city and beyond about how we can clarify. And again, the core is going to be continuing to be in communication with the Providence Police Department, leadership, making sure that we all understand the parameters.
You were critical of ICE in general and what they're doing, but if they are doing what they state they're doing in trying to pick up violent criminals, who have arrests in the United States who are here illegally. Do you have a problem with that?
I do not. There are very firm tools for people to pursue violent offenders, criminal offenders, and there's no place for criminal offenders on our streets. You need to follow the law. You need to follow the Constitution. You need to get a judicial warrant and move forward.
There was another incident, not with immigration, but with the police department around the 4th of July, where there was a house party that officers responded to. I think you believe you were critical of how they handled that incident as well. The police chief, Oscar Perez, initially defended his officers' actions. The body camera video again showed it getting out of control, some punches and officers taking some people to the ground. Initially, the police chief defended the officers' actions, but then more recently, last month, they dropped the charges against the people at the party and disciplined some of the officers. What do you think about how the police handled that and turning things around?
That's how things should go, right? The chief saw the evidence, did the due diligence that they needed to do in the department, and came to a conclusion. I was happy to see that happen. I think that's how we build public trust. And that's not to say, right, like crime is decreasing. Lower than previous years on violent crime, lower than previous years on property crime. That's due in large part to the leadership of the force and the men and women on the force. So I think that there's sometimes a point of confusion between saying, oh, this one incident is bad, versus saying the Providence police have my support. I do not ever want that to be the confusion.
Overall, how do you think the police are doing? Give them a grade.
I'm not in the position of giving grades, but like I said, I work with the police regularly in my neighborhood and across the city. Crime is down, the chief is responsive, the leaders are responsive.
How would you term in an overall theme your leadership of the council? I think some people think it's kind of an activist council. What do you think of that term, and what do you want your leadership in this council to do? Maybe it's not traditional or what we've seen from the Providence City Council or other city councils in the past.
It is absolutely not necessarily what we've seen in the past. I think there's two big themes. One, not just me, but every single council member is responsive. We have been committed throughout the course of this term in making sure that the residents of Providence get a seat at the table in decisions about them. More so, I mean, last year, city councilors held 95 community meetings. That's not even including all of the work we did around the comprehensive plan. And residents feel that. They feel it when they come to public hearings. They feel it when they come to public meetings. We change decisions. We make decisions with them.
One of your big issues, and a big issue in general, is housing. Where are you on rent control? That's something you've talked about before. Do you think the city should have rent control? Is that something you want to happen?
I think that rent has risen astronomically high in the city of Providence. I think that rent stabilization is one leg on a stool, right? Where the other one is production of housing, and the third is preservation of low-income and affordable units. That's how we get there. Right now it costs over $2,000 to rent a 2-bedroom apartment in Providence. You would need to be earning more than, I think, $82,000 a year to have that be 30% of your costs. The median income in Rhode Island and Providence is 66. So it's not going to regulate itself. We need to do all at once.
The mayor and the council and you have disagreed on housing policy on a number of things, the 8 law, the tax restrictions that help low-income housing. Where are you and the mayor on these things, and what's your relationship overall?
So I think we have a strong relationship because we can keep talking when we disagree. We both want to close the loopholes that let certain actors in the housing market take advantage of what is meant to be for low-income affordable housing. That's the 8 law issue. We have different opinions on how to get there. I'm hopeful that we'll have something in front of the council this fall on that. Similarly, as part of the kind of housing piece, we've got buildings in downtown that are languishing because of, COVID work-at-home policies. We got to find a path to make it feasible for folks to translate those into residential units. I'm committed to that.
What's your concern, frustration level with where things are at with the Superman building? Talking about turning some space into housing.
The Superman building, I think everyone is frustrated with the slow process. I think we also understand that is a very large undertaking, and the market has been wildly volatile in the time that it's happening.
Do you think it's still going to happen?
Something will be happening with the Superman building. I think that, yes.
Okay. I did want to talk about taxes as well. Obviously, this year, the mayor proposed and the council increased the tax levy in large part because the city has to pay more for the schools. What do you tell the residents who have to pony up more money now because of that? Was this a bitter pill to swallow? Did you think there was any other way to go?
So I think it was incredibly challenging. I think the big issue in front of every resident is the rising cost of everything, right? Housing. This was a hard year because we had two things happen at once. We are required by state law to do a reevaluation. And then, as you mentioned, we had a legal obligation to make up for decades of underfunding our school in 1 year. The council, I do not begrudge our Providence Public Schools a single dollar of that money.
And just finishing up here very quickly, obviously part of that is the debate over returning control to the city. Do you think the city is ready and prepared to take control of the schools? I know the mayor wanted it in July.
Absolutely.
The state's not doing that. Do you want the schools now?
Absolutely. I think mayor, council, school board are working together to move that forward. Thanks to our partnership with RIDE, this term alone, we have delegated $400 million to make sure that every student is in a new building or in substantially rehabbed building. $400 million last term as well. We're ready to take back local control.
All right, we'll see what the state does. Providence City Council President Rachel Miller, thanks for joining us here on 10 News Conference.